was interested in listening to Peter's spot survey this morning, the hands up about the different types of organisations that we represent. We're a very diverse group, aren't we? We have all sorts of different kinds of incorporation. Some of us are chartered bodies, some of us are charities, some of us are quite large, others are quite niche. Some of us have entirely UK operations, some have international ones. We're all very different. But I think what we have in common is that we all have a shared imperative that we do need to keep on earning revenue in order to keep doing what we do. The money doesn't mysteriously arrive in our bank account, we have to go out and earn it. But we all have constraints on what we can do to earn that money. Our traditional income streams quite often are slow to increase. Things like membership and qualifications are not really price elastic. You can make small incremental increases year on year, but you can't really levy big new charges on your members. So when we were thinking about how we were going to tackle the need to encourage new income streams, but also really importantly to sustain that level of income, we started to think about what was happening to our traditional income streams and where the opportunities might lie. We had a lot of conversations over a long time, and what we came up with was a solution which is very much focused towards what I'm sure you would identify as the commercial side of operations. And in particular, we moved our focus from our customer base being our members to our customer base being their employers. I thought I'd start off by putting this in context for you so you can see how our revenue mix has changed over time. I'm afraid those colours don't look quite as zingy up there as they do on my small screen here. But the blue columns are all 2005, where our total revenue was around about £10 million. The red bar is 2010, by which time our revenue had gone up to around about £15 million. And in 2015, the green bars, we've increased to over £24 million. So that's quite a steep curve. Now you can see, if this little pointer thing works here, membership fees 10 years ago were running just under 25%. These are predicted to drop to around about 20% over the next year or so. On the other hand, our corporate business 10 years ago was just over 25%, and now it's over 40% of the mix. So you can see that proportionally, the amount of corporate business has increased quite significantly over that period of time. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is that these old income streams fell off a cliff. This is recruitment. This was our very small careers advisory service. We would try and place people in jobs. In 2005, it was a modest earner for us, a very small operation. But we quite frankly couldn't compete with agencies. We simply didn't have the resource to actually do anything very significant with that. And after 2005, it disappeared and we abandoned it. The bookshop has always been a significant earner for us. We produce our own qualification course books, and that has always been a steady stream for us. It dipped a bit around about 2010 when a competitor appeared and undercut us on price, while somehow managing to incorporate most of our content. So we had some interesting legal encounters with that individual. And what we decided to do in the end with him was go into partnership with him. We thought, we're spending so much money arguing with this guy. He knows his stuff. He's managed to corner some of our market, so let's go into partnership with him. It's, shall we say, an interesting marriage. But it's working. It's working because he is a specialist bookseller, book producer. He knows what the market wants. And then finally, the journal. The journal historically was always a very good earner for us. We had a partnership with an external provider, and we had a profit share arrangement. And at its peak, the journal was clearing £1 million profit in a year, and we would share that 50-50 with the producer. So that was quite a nice sustained little income stream for us. Until journals were no longer popular, and we started to lose, most importantly, advertising revenue. The journal's income was heavily dependent on advertising, and particularly jobs advertising. And when most of that migrated to the internet, the bottom fell out of that particular income stream. We do still have the journal, but only in the UK. We've gone entirely online outside the UK, and the journal has an online feed which most members seem to prefer, and we are planning to progress to phase out the hard copy journal in the next few years. There's a hard core of members who actually look forward to it arriving on their mat. So when we've surveyed them and said, can we scrap this? They said, actually, no, we like it. So over time, we're going to phase it out where we can. And interesting enough, we took a deep breath when we cancelled it for our overseas members, and we have 50% of our members outside the UK. We thought, okay, we'll brace ourselves for the backlash. Absolutely nothing happened. They all like it online. These were our challenges. I'll go through those very quickly. Membership, high volume, but low value. Because so many of our members are outside the UK, many are students, they enjoy discounts on their membership and also on their qualification fees. We weren't making a huge amount of money out of a membership. And membership isn't something that grows really fast. We are always very pleased when we have an incremental increase year on year. It's not something that takes off like a rocket. We also had a historical policy of subsidising on the basis of World Bank GDP around the world. So we had loads of members in Africa who essentially were being subsidised from the UK. The fees they paid simply didn't cover the cost of providing their services. So we sort of shot ourselves in the foot by trying to be really generous to those members who were less able to pay our fees. And of course, as the proportion of those low payers increased in our membership group, then the mix of our income from membership and examination fees started to slide down. As I mentioned earlier, we saw the decline of the traditional revenue streams from our journal, and also at the time our corporate business was extremely immature. Our typical model was that an employer would send along one or two of their people to one of our public training courses. They'd spend a day or two there, and that was it. We never seemed to be able to engage with the employer on a big scale, even though we knew that a very high proportion of our members had all their fees paid for by their employer. So in fact, the employer was our customer. They were the ones sending in the money. So that was a light bulb moment for us. It wasn't our members who were paying out of their own pockets, it was their employer. So their employer immediately became our customer target. There was always also something, and I'm sure a lot of you will recognise this, of an anti-commercial culture. We're a professional body, we're a charity, we don't do unpleasant things like sell to people. For a long, long time, we didn't even have a formal marketing and PR office in our organisation. We winged it, I think. We used design agencies to make brochures look pretty, but we didn't have a marketing strategy. Over the last 10 years or so, that improved hugely, and one of the ladies in this room was one of the spearheads of that. Thank you, Carolyn, for bringing professionalism to marketing at CIPS. We also had our ambition restricted. We had loads of ideas, but we didn't have a lot of money, we didn't have a lot of know-how, and we didn't really know what we could do next. So those are our challenges, and this is what we decided to do about it. This is our strategy. We decided that we weren't going to make members our target for this expansion. We were going to ring-fence everything we did around membership and qualifications, and we would look elsewhere. And the starting point that we had was actually in our charter. We had an imperative to encourage the promotion and development of improved methods of procurement and supply in all organisations. Well, that's a huge remit, and we never really asked ourselves what that meant. So we thought long and hard about it. And we decided that this would be our focus. We would look to provide services to organisations, the employers of our members, to make sure they had the tools and the techniques to improve how they did procurement and supply. So first of all, we did some competition analysis because we were a pretty small fish in quite a large pond. And we had to understand who else was out there. There's no point in going up against the KPMGs of this world. We actually found that there were quite a few gaps in the market. And we also had another light bulb moment, our USP as a chartered body and a charity. The brand value of those two factors was very, very significant in our marketplace. If you remember, our people are procurement experts. They are very, very savvy. They have as a mantra value for money. They will argue down to the last penny on the cost of a service or a product. So we knew that we had this USP that we could actually then promote to their employers. We also realised we didn't have the skills in-house. Again, we thought, should we outsource all this activity? And we thought, no, we're in here for the long haul. So we invested in actually bringing commercial nous into the organisation. We also thought about how we develop new products and services. We've always done it, I'm sure you've always done it, but we did it in a slightly piecemeal way. Somebody would have a great idea, we'd put a small team together, we'd try and work out how we were going to deliver this new thing, but we didn't actually have a formal product development process with gateways that had to be passed before you get the green light to invest. We now have that discipline in-house. We also thought we ought to identify some new commercial partners. For something like 2 or 3 decades, we've been tied to 1 or 2 key partners, key deliverers. And although that was a suitable arrangement at the time, it simply couldn't sustain that leap into an extra level of activity. We had to find more people to work with. I won't go through this in too much detail. I'm sure you're familiar with these kinds of 4-box matrices. But this is where we were. We were selling our existing products into our familiar markets. We tried a bit of new product development, but that had patchy success. So what we started to do was look at where our new markets were, and we looked at employers. We also looked internationally, and we started to develop our international markets by setting up offices outside the UK, starting in Australia in around about 2005. So that's, again, a crucial date from that slide I showed you earlier. So that was our starting point, 2005, starting to set up international offices. And this was the big opportunity for us, diversification. That's a scary word in charter world. You have to be so careful you don't go outside your remit. You'll be criticised by the regulators, you'll be criticised by your members if you start to do that. If you go completely off-piste and do something simply to make money, you will be rightly criticised. So, we set about building a new customer base, which was the corporate clients, the private and public sector organisations that we knew we had members in. We realised we needed to have people on our team who could make connections with those customers. So we rebuilt a market-facing team and brought in a new customer relationship management system. We had a pretty primitive one, mainly spreadsheets and word of mouth, but in fact we digitised it, and that's earned dividends for us. We overhauled our product portfolio and we listened to what our clients were saying to us. The interesting conversations were with the unconvinced. We had some very tricky conversations with members of our own board. We said, why don't you buy our products and services for your organisation? And they told us why they didn't buy them. And mainly it was perception that we were the chartered body. We didn't do that kind of thing, did we? So they were going to KPMG or whoever. They didn't recognise us, their own body, as being capable of doing these things. We had the new product development process, as I've mentioned, and we also developed a new delivery model. So instead of having 1 or 2 partners, we've now got dozens and dozens of partners. We also focused our marketing effort on our USP. So we woke up to the value of our brand, and we focus on it all the time. So whenever we're doing a presentation to an organisation, the brand values of being a chartered body and not-for-profit are really emphasised. We developed some strategic partnerships. These are, again, very, very interesting. When we started out, we thought, with such small fry, these people aren't going to want to talk to us, but in fact they did. We've developed some very, very interesting and long-term relationships with these organisations. They have been very fruitful for us, not just in earning revenue, but we've been able to use these relationships to promote what we do around the world. So by going into, as we have done in recent years, Bangladesh on a 3-year project with World Bank, we went in to help train the public sector procurement officers in Bangladesh how to do it. It was an extremely immature procurement activity in that country, and they were being ripped off left, right and centre. The World Bank was worried because donor funding was disappearing into a black hole of corruption. So we went in and we've been training their procurement people how to deal with corrupt situations, how to manage your procurement and actually be able to spend the money that you're getting from donors wisely and see some return for it. So those kind of relationships are really helpful to us. We don't make much money out of that activity, but what we do is build our own credibility for other potential customers, and our name gets around the world. We developed some more sophisticated marketing tools than we'd had to previously, and we also developed some really useful marketing collateral, which is essentially customer testimonials. They're very, very helpful things to have. And we launched what we call CIPS for Business. I won't go into this one in too much detail, but we had to answer quite a difficult question: why on earth would people want to come to CIPS? So we identified a few features that we thought would be compelling and made a good story to tell. You'll have that in your packs if you want to look at those in any detail. And this is the model of CIPS for Business. It's essentially a 3-pronged attack on our corporate customer base. Bottom left is the capability development. Now that's our heartland. That's the stuff we know best. That's developing the skills and the aptitude and the capabilities of staff, of procurement individuals and also procurement teams. This was something that we knew very well how to do, but it was something we needed to reconfigure into the business space. And then we looked at a new area, which was corporate performance. So how do you perform as an organisation? What contribution does procurement make to the success of your organisation? And the final leg of the triangle was around supply assurance and compliance. Risk is a huge issue for most organisations, and it's top of the agenda for procurement teams at the moment. They are often seen in their organisations as the frontline defence against things going horribly wrong. You just have to think about things like horse meat scandal, Primark. If you get your procurement wrong, your supply chain is wrong, your business can die overnight. So looking back at that first leg of the triangle, capability development, our main product is a thing called Corporate Award. This is essentially our qualifications program embedded in an organisation. And we have moved from a position where an employer would send 1 or 2 people to a 1 or 2 day course. We now have large cohorts within an organisation. Employers are much happier for us to go in, train all their people at one go. They get economies of scale in terms of cost, but also, and really importantly for them, the content of those courses, while all the core content has to be there, there are elements that can be tailored and customised to that organisation. So the cohort will work on a project looking to save cost, for example, within their organisation. So there will be a tangible benefit from that organisation undertaking that investment. And quite often, they can recover the cost of the entire course through the outputs of that project. Obviously, we've had to invest heavily in e-learning, and this for us, having fairly limited resources, was the big intake of breath moment. I think very few of us actually understood how much this was going to cost. Those of you who've done it will know, but we had to do it. We invested very heavily in it, but luckily we had the backing of our trustees, who within their own organisations were familiar with e-learning in other formats. We were also lucky enough in working with some very large corporates who wanted us to develop e-learning products for them, that they helped us fund it. Because we said, well, we'd love to do this for you, we can't afford it. And they said, well, we'll pay for some of the development if you will customise it for us. And so that's what we did. But what that has left us with is a core e-learning programme which we can now market more extensively. This is just a selection of some of our customers, which isn't to show off. It's actually just to show you the diversity of kind of organisations that we work with. We thought it was really important not to put all our eggs in one basket. We're lucky in our institute that we have members from every kind of organisation you can possibly think of. Every organisation buys stuff, so there's always somebody doing procurement somewhere. But what we do is focus on 2 or 3 key sectors every year, and the big one for us at the moment is oil, gas and petrochems. So you see some big names up there. And we have customer relationship managers who become specialists in those sectors. They will often have come out of that sector themselves, and they speak the right language. So those are just a few, and there's a few in the public sector. Often the core content is very similar between public and private sector, although each side will debate that strenuously. But it does mean that they are transportable between sectors. Coming on to the performance leg of the triangle, we have a thing called corporate certification. And this is essentially the CIPS kite mark that we give to organisations who can demonstrate they meet particular standards in terms of their procurement policies and practices. Very strong emphasis on ethics as part of that. We go in and we audit them, and if they tick all the boxes, they get a certification from us. This has been an outstandingly successful product for us. If I tell you that the charge for this, depending on the level that you go for, and there are 4 levels, ranges from £27,000 to £58,000 a year per customer, and we currently have 200 customers. That gives you an indication of the kind of money you can earn from that. Please don't broadcast that outside this room, and there's also a pretty high margin on that too. We did think, okay, well, these are really expensive things. I mean, we don't just go in and out in an afternoon. This is a very, very long process for them, and we work very closely with each organisation. We did realise that if someone's paid £50,000 for this lovely certificate, which lasts them for 3 years, in 3 years' time, are they going to really want to pay it again? So we decided, no, they probably won't. So if they remain close to us and enable us to do a small check halfway through that 3-year period, we go in and do a quick check that they're on the right track. Then if they choose to renew at the end of their 3 years, they have a 50% discount on the cost. And that has enabled us to get repeat business. There's absolutely no point in selling one thing at £50,000 and never being able to sell that organisation again. You also have to be able to demonstrate return on their investment for them. So there needs to be something really tangible that comes out of that process. Although, of course, we are talking about really big organisations who spend billions on their procurement spend. So for them, £50,000 often is neither here nor there. But what it does is that they can put that mark all over their own literature. They can say, we've been audited, we can tell you that our procurement is being done properly, we can tell you our supply chains are as risk-free as possible. And I'm going to have to motor now, thank you. This is another product that we have, the catchily titled Return on Supply Management Assets. This is a performance check that organisations can do, and we're in partnership here with A.T. Kearney and ISM, the American Institute. And finally, the final leg of the triangle, you'll see that a lot of this stuff is around risk management, and we've brought in a number of products and services which help organisations manage risk. I think it's very important to think about how you can reach beyond your familiar community of practice. It's what we try to do ourselves. We spent years and years just thinking about us as this club, so we were just marketing to us. and we started to think, okay, we need to break through those external barriers and go a bit further. We are fortunate, I recognise, that being in a business environment is a business discipline, that you do have more opportunities than some of you in more niche areas. So we look for those opportunities, and we look for issues that were affecting the world of work generally, where we felt we had something to say. So we look out for things like changes in government policy and legislation, and this generates for us a triple benefit. We start to be able to get income from non-members. Our own members, by contrast, and something that Jackie alluded to, perceive a value add if they know they're getting it for free, whereas a non-member has to pay for it. And by going outside your own community of practice, your message gets out there. It raises the profile of you as an organisation. One of the things that we did, this is just an example of one of the external things that happened that we were able to key into, was the Modern Slavery Act. We were asked by government to contribute to the supply chain section of the Act, the rules for organisations. I don't know whether you're aware, but if you have a turnover of over £36 million a year, you now have to produce an annual statement to say that you've audited your supply chain, and you can say with reasonable accuracy that you are confident that you have eradicated any possibility of modern slavery from that supply chain. And if you don't make that statement, you will probably get fined. This was a golden opportunity for us. This is what we do. So we developed some ethics training, and we also developed this little mark here, the ethics mark. This is available both to individuals and to organisations. So if you do the training course and you complete the examination at the end of it, you receive an ethics mark. And on our public database of members, qualified members, members who completed this successfully have that mark against their name. Organisations that train their procurement people to do this qualification then get a corporate mark, and again that's useful for them to be able to put in their own literature. It does mean that we get repeat business from this. This ethics training is completely free to our own members, but non-members pay £38 to do the online test. The course contents are regularly updated, and so if you want to keep refreshing that, you're going to have to pay again. So it does deliver a new income stream. But we do have a dilemma. Thank you. We're thinking about making it a condition for all our members, if they want to maintain their membership, we will expect them to do the ethics test. The dilemma is, do we charge for it or do we not? Should it be free? Is it ethical to charge money for training people about ethics? Discuss. So we're wrestling with that one. The chances are it will remain free. And then, very quickly, knowledge is an income stream. Historically, like a lot of you, I guess, the knowledge products that we produce were essentially done by members, and committee groups would be producing stuff. It was a very slow process to market. Quality was a bit iffy, if I'm being absolutely frank. So we've changed from actually doing it ourselves to curating knowledge produced by others. And we've developed a thing called knowledge partners, using expert external partners who pay us a fee for the privilege. They can be our exclusive partner in a particular area of our discipline, and they can have a different package depending on how much profile they want on our database. The benefit for them is they get free advertising, because we get a lot of hits on that database, and massive amount of hits actually from the US on that part of the website. They can demonstrate that they get a lot more traffic onto their website, and they can then cross-sell other products that they have to offer. Those partners have been extremely happy with this. It's a good revenue earner for us. The big challenge for us is, who do we pick when we have one exclusive partner per topic, and how do we quality assess them? So that's work in progress. However, thank you, it generates £1 million over 3 years, so it's worth doing. And I'm being that now, so very, very quickly. There you are. Yes, it is working. Between 2010 and now, it's more than doubled corporate revenue. AVEs, the equivalent of, if we had to pay for advertising, we reckon we saved about £34 million. And currently that investment in relationships with corporates is really paying off. We've got 22 organisations generating 50% of our income. So it's worth investing in making sure those are very happy customers. And just to conclude, really focus on your unique qualities. You have to look at what puts you apart from everybody else out there. Make sure you've got some commercial skills on board. Make sure you're really robust about your new product development. Don't just do something because it's your CEO's whim, because that isn't always a successful route to market. Think hard about whether you need to make it or yourself or whether you can buy it in. Think hard about whether you really need to own the IP. We wrestled with that for a long time. We were so frightened about letting the IP out to somebody else, but in fact it can work. Be realistic how long it's going to take you to get these things to market, and be really prepared to pull the plug on it if it's not working. Cut your losses. It's not worth throwing money after bad. And really do invest in those customer relationships, and think about the long haul rather than quick wins.